And we are now recording. This is the Pranzata Podcast. Today we have a solo episode. This is episode number 10, solo podcast. This is going to be the last solo episode for a while. I have a lot of really exciting guests coming up pretty soon. And before we get into the solo podcast, if you're new to this channel, on this channel I have podcasts and I do music covers as well. You'll find, hip hop, jazz, R&B, some classical music. You'll also find podcasts where every now and then I'll have a solo podcast like this, because of COVID. But normally I'll interview guests, I'll interview comedians, musicians, artists. I have some pretty interesting people coming up. I have a sommelier coming up, like a wine expert. I have a comedian coming up who writes his own comedy songs and everything like that. I have a bikini model coming up, so I'm really excited about all these guests. And we like to have deep conversations on this podcast. We like to really delve deep into kind of philosophical questions and stuff like that. And we like to have fun and have a good time. So if this is anything you're interested, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and feel free to comment on anything down below as the conversation goes. I'm here to build a community with my subscribers. Again, I like to kind of get into deep conversation. So if there's anything you have to add to the conversation, or if there's anything you disagree with, you want to have a friendly debate about something, I'm totally down for that. That's kind of my thing. I really like that type of stuff. So anyways, let's get into it. The Pranzata Podcast, episode number 10. Here we are. So since today's a solo podcast, I figured I would, on my Instagram story, I put up one of those things where it said question and answer, because I didn't have anything in specific I wanted to talk about today. So I figured I would allow my subscribers and my Instagram followers to kind of tell me what to talk about and give me some ideas. So I got some of the questions I got are pretty simple questions that I can answer, but the majority of the questions are very deep and very philosophically complex questions, which actually that made me really excited, because that goes to show that people are listening and people get what I'm about. And it kind of gave me confidence and courage to even get these questions to begin with, because it's wow, I feel really flattered that people think I could even answer these questions, because some of these questions don't even have an answer, but all I could do is give you my best answer. So we're going to start with one of the easier questions first, and then we'll start with the easier questions first, and then we'll get into the more philosophically complex questions as we go. So first question: when did you discover your passion for singing? So that's actually an interesting question. By the way, before we get into the question, I have tea today. My subscribers know that I like to drink on my podcast, but the thing is I am snowed in, so I couldn't get to the liquor store. I didn't have anything to drink. I didn't have any wine already at the house or anything like that. So we're going to have a sober afternoon today on the Pranzata Podcast, but that's cool. Some ginger tea we got here, good for the digestive system, good for the immune system. We need all that stuff right now, you know what I mean? But anyways, how did I discover my passion for singing? When? So good question, because it's actually fairly recently that I've considered myself a singer. I never likened myself to be a singer. I always considered myself a musician in general, but mainly a pianist or a keyboard player. So the way that I became a singer or got into singing is interesting. So I used to teach music lessons at this studio downtown where I live, and one of my coworkers was a blues musician. He had his own band, and he was the band leader and the lead guitarist, for the band, but he didn't sing. He always had a singer for his band. So basically I was in my practice room or teaching room, but I guess I was practicing because I didn't have a student at the time. I was in my teaching room practicing, and I was singing something. Cause like I said, I'm a pianist. I always liked to sing, but it's not something that I ever thought I was really that good at or anything like that. I just kind of thought oh, I can sing. I'm a musician, but I'm a piano player. That's what I am, kind of thing. So he overheard me singing, and he knocked on the door, and he was like, hey, you have a pretty nice voice. Would you be interested in singing for my blues band? And I was like, oh, no, don't get the wrong idea here. I like to sing, but I'm not a singer. And he was like, dude, I'm desperate for a singer right now. I need a singer really bad, because he's he was like a professional musician getting gigs like pretty frequently and stuff like that. So I was pretty reluctant at first. Like, it took me a month to get back to him because, like, on one hand, I was like, I just don't feel confident, like, singing like that in front of people. Like, I can sing, like, in tune and everything like that, but I'm not a professional singer. I'm not going to go from, at this point, I was like, 28 or 29 years old. I'm not going to go from, like, age 29 to never singing a gig in my life to being a professional, like, blues singer. It's just, I was like, that's not going to happen. Then I don't know, like, he was just like, think about it and get back to me. So it kind of sat with me for a little bit. I was like, all right, well, maybe I should just take on the opportunity because you never know what will come of it, kind of thing. That was my mindset. And it wasn't like overnight. It was like a couple, weeks later. And then I finally came back to him. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Why don't I just try out for the band? Like, I can't guarantee you that I have this like amazing voice or that I'm what you're looking for necessarily. But I'll give it a shot just to see, what happens, what comes of it. So he gave me a blues set list. They're pretty easy tunes to learn. Because like a lot of the blues is like very similar in the songs, which we'll get to later, why I ended up leaving the band. But anyway, so I learned all the tunes and everything like that. We met for a rehearsal and he was like, okay. He was like, yeah, you have a pretty good voice. Your first gig is on this date. And I was like, whoa, what did I get myself into? Like, I went from like, let's see where this goes to like, all of a sudden I was getting regular gigs as a singer. So it's just kind of weird. Like it kind of feels like that's just how my life goes, like all the time. Like I feel like this could be a different conversation for a whole nother time, but I feel like I'm kind of a late bloomer in life and I did a lot of things later in life. And I guess singing is just one of those things that it just kind of like fell into my lap and became like a passion. So yeah, so I don't know, like as I started doing these gigs and everything, I started getting a lot better at singing. And then I started teaching singing. Like, I started researching a lot on my own and reading a lot about singing and teaching singing. So it was really like a snowball effect of something that I was like, I can kind of do this. And I just kind of like stumbled into this situation. Now, why did I leave that band? For one, after like a year of being in that band, I realized that a lot of the songs sounded the same. And that's not to shit on the blues genre because like the blues is the foundation of a lot of like almost all the music that we listen to today. The blues scale is like a major foundation. The minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic scale is a big deal. It's in so much, it's in like everything. But I don't know, just this particular band, I felt like a lot of the songs sounded the same. There were a lot of like shuffles and it kind of got too easy for me after a while. And in addition to that, like another side note about this situation, I started getting the vibe that the band leader like had a big crush on me and he started getting feelings for me, and I was in a serious relationship at the time. So, those two things combined, like the fact that I wasn't really into the music anymore, combined with the fact that I started getting like vibes that the lead singer was kind of into me and stuff like that. So I just left the band. I wrote him an email telling him that I didn't want to be in the band anymore and everything like that. But I didn't end my singing studies there. That was actually kind of, I guess you could say, the beginning. Like, it was kind of cool to be able to have that experience and start with an easier genre, because it was kind of the building block and the foundation to then start learning things that I actually like. So now I've been learning how to play jazz on the piano, and it's been really nice to accompany my vocals with that, because it's a lot more interesting for me to explore these different melodies and not only explore the blues scale and everything like that. So yeah, it's kind of a weird story about how I started singing, because when I tell people that, they're like, you just started singing like a few years ago? You've been on stage and like, it seems like you've been doing this for years. And I'm just like, that's literally the story of my life. Like, I learned piano later in life, learned singing later in life. I learned Spanish later in life. I'm just a late bloomer. Like, I just started doing things in my mid-20s. And I don't know, I guess like they say that you stop learning at a certain age. Like, they say the neuroplasticity of your brain literally stops at a certain age. But I think in my case, I had like a strong desire to learn. And so the willingness and the desire to learn is what helped me like, be able to change my brain even at an older age. And that, I guess, paired with the fact that because I didn't do very much in my youth, I kind of had like a blank slate. Like I don't feel like my brain was filled up with too much. So it was kind of like I was put in a time capsule and I was frozen for 10 years. And then I came out of that time capsule like the same age that I was when I started it. So, you know, I'm in my 30s now, but I still feel very like youthful. You know what I mean? Like I still feel mentally very with it and physically very with it. But anyways, that's like a side ramble. How I discovered my passion for singing. So number 2, there's really only 2 easy questions on this, and the rest of them are very deep questions. So I'm going to get to the second easy question. What is the first song that I learned, vocal or instrumental? So it's kind of weird, like when people ask me like, when did you start piano? So the first song I learned was piano, obviously, because I didn't start singing till much later. But people will be like, so when did you start learning piano? And I don't even know how to answer the question because it's kind of complicated. I actually have a video on my channel called I think it's called I'm Quitting Classical Music, or Why I'm Quitting Classical Music. You can find that, and that'll explain like a more in-depth conversation of my musical history and my musical background. But in a nutshell, I took very brief lessons at like age 6 or 7, something like that. And then I stopped taking lessons because of like issues in my family and stuff. Like I guess my parents were just unable to take me to lessons because they were dealing with their own issues, and there was like a divorce and everything. So there just wasn't much like attention, you know, on my skills or my abilities, which might be why I was such a late bloomer. You know, again, that's another side thing. But so anyways, to answer this question, what was my first song I learned? So if you count like the brief lessons that I took as a little kid, then probably something like Mary Had a Little Lamb or something like that. But if you're talking about like what was the first song that I learned that I was passionate about and I learned by ear, because after these basic lessons were over when I was little, I started learning my own things by ear. And the first thing that I remember learning and like having a strong desire to learn, and I actually, you know, just went on the piano by myself. I want to say I was like 7 or 8 years old. I remember being really obsessed with the movie Charlotte's Web when I was a kid. And I don't even know the name of the song. That just like goes to show how shitty of a fan I am. But I think it's just called Charlotte's Web. Like the movie is called Charlotte's Web, and I think that it's like the theme song of the movie. I think it's just called Charlotte's Web. I think that's what it's called. But I'm going to play it for you. I have a little keyboard here, so let me set it up so that I can play for you guys. Hold on. The name of the song, like I said, I think it's called Charlotte's Web, and it's from the movie Charlotte's Web. It's like, if anybody's seen this movie as a kid, I'm talking the old movie. I think they made a new one, but I'm talking about like the old Charlotte's Web movie. There was like a scene where she was like weaving her spider web throughout the night, and it was like I was mesmerized by this. It was just so enchanting and everything. And it's funny, like my little 7-year-old hands like found my way to the notes, and I was able to use my ear to play it and everything like that. And it's funny, as an adult, I realized that it's not really that complex of a song for like my music geek fans out there. It's literally just like minor. It's just like a 1-4-5 chord progression, but that makes sense that would be like something as a kid that I would pick up on. And it sounds very classical sounding too. So and it's got a dark sound, like it's got like a very like macabre kind of like dark sound, and I've always been attracted to the dark arts, like even as a kid, and even to this day. Like I have a dark sense of humor. I've always liked like Halloween, and I've always liked like The Nightmare Before Christmas. So I just remember, you know, at a pretty young age, like being mesmerized by this song and you know, wanting to learn it. So anyways, I guess this is the first song I've ever learned, kind of, if you don't count like Mary Had a Little Lamb and stuff like that. So here we go, Charlotte's Web. that's Charlotte's Web from the Charlotte's Web movie, the Charlotte's Web theme song. And that was the first song I found my way to when I was like 7 years old. And that's it. So let me set this back up to regular Podcastville. 1 second. Okay, and we are back. I was actually nervous to play that. It was, like, even though it's a pretty simple song to play, it was still a performance. I get performance anxiety even to this day, you know what I mean? But that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. So those were the 2 simple questions I got. I don't want to say simple questions, like for the people who asked it, because then it makes me sound like I'm calling you like an idiot or something. I don't mean it that way, but I just mean the questions with a more definitive answer. Now, here's the questions that I'm going to need my subscribers and my listeners to kind of chime in on in the comment section below, because these questions are, I can give you my opinion, but they're definitely debatable questions. So the first question, I need to take a sip of tea for this one. Why does society place a high value on beauty when it serves no functional purpose? So my fans are pretty dark and pretty deep thinkers, which I like I was saying in the beginning of the podcast, I actually am very flattered about that, because that means I'm attracting the right kinds of people to this channel that jive with me. So why? Let me say this question again. And again, if you want to give your answer below, please comment. Why does society place a high value on beauty when it serves no functional purpose? Okay, so I get why you would ask this question, because I understand the perspective. I don't want to say I think I understand the perspective that you're coming from. I think you're saying that people put such a high focus on beauty and looks when there are so many other things to focus on. So my answer to this question, and I thought about this before the podcast, because these aren't things that I could just come up with on the spot. I think beauty has a functional purpose, but I think that we are as a society in present day, we are missing the point of beauty. So let me explain further. I think beauty has a purpose. It's just that we don't really get the purpose these days. But so I think beauty, we get sensitive about the topic of beauty. Am I pretty? Is she prettier than me? All that kind of stuff. Am I good enough? Kind of thing. As a society, we do get really sensitive about this. And there was actually a time and place in my life where I was also very sensitive about this, and I had a lot of hang-ups and insecurities about how I look. I don't feel that way anymore, but there was a time in my life where I was very hung up on my physical appearance, and I had a lot of insecurities around it. I think that the purpose of beauty is very natural. I think beauty is an indicator of health, and health is an indicator of fertility, and fertility is an indicator of creation and the future. So I don't think there's any reason to get sensitive about beauty. I think it's important to recognize why we are attracted to beauty. And now this is going to sound like I'm sexualizing or objectifying women or people, but I'm going to make a comparison. Why does a juicy peach look so alluring? Why, like, don't you just kind of get aroused, like just thinking about like the word peach? Like, why does it look so juicy and alluring and you just want to take a bite of it? Why is that? Well, because that's Mother Nature's way of saying, bite into this. There is life in this. You will move forward by biting this peach. And again, I sound kind of like an asshole. I sound like I'm sexually objectifying, but like for real, I really mean it. I think that the reason why women look beautiful is because they are like that peach. Like they are fertile and full of life, and it's not meant to offend anybody. You know what I mean? I just think it's nature. It's just the laws of nature. Everything that a man is attracted to about a woman is because it represents fertility. A woman's big ass, you know what I mean? Like these days we like a big ol' ass. It's because that's the child bears the children. large breasts. It's because that feeds the children. And it's not like people are actively thinking about this stuff like while they're checking women out. Like, you don't like look at a woman and be like, if you're a dude, you know, you don't look at a woman and be like, I like those tits to feed my child. Like, that's not what you're thinking. It's all subconscious. So beauty has a purpose. You know what I mean? The purpose of beauty is to procreate. That's it. Beautiful women are fertile women, and fertile women move society forward. It's really that simple. I know I sound a little fucked up when I compared like women to fruit, but like, that's how I feel. Now, here's where we get it twisted. Now, going back to what I was saying about beauty just represents health. Health equals beauty. If you're healthy, you look beautiful. That's it. And beauty looks different on different people. I consider myself very healthy. I don't have an ample bosom. That's not what I look like. So beauty looks different on different people, you know. Some women or men, you know what I mean, men and women. But some people, their healthiest state is a little chunkier than someone in their thin state, or in some cases, a fertile woman isn't as busty. Like I'm not busty, but I'm, you know, I feel like I take very good care of my health and I'm a healthy woman. So beauty looks different on different people. So, and this is going to go into where we're getting it wrong. I think as a society, I think pretty much anything that people need, as a business mindset that we have in our country, there's going to be a way to make money off of the needs of people. And people will try to make money off of things that people want and people desire. So if beauty is going to attract a mate to move society forward, well, then the business minds of America, you know, maybe the more evil business minds that really have the incentive of making money and not really helping towards a bigger cause, they're going to tap into that and they're going to try to make money off of the needs, off of the desires. Like, so for example, that's why there's a lot of like, fortune tellers and stuff like that. Like anything that a human desires, there will be somebody out there trying to make money off of that. Even dating apps. Like, have you ever, like, you know, if you've ever been on a dating app, I've tried it before, and they kind of like try to feed off of your need to want to find somebody. That's why I won't use them, you know, in this day, because I feel like it's kind of like a business. It's kind of like a market. They'll kind of like, you'll sign up for the dating app and they'll like show you interesting people, but then they'll be like, oh, but you can't see their message unless you pay us money. So like, yeah, like getting into it, like any human desire that's out there, there will be somebody trying to make money off of it. And beauty is just one of those things. So I think as a society, you have to be, we are confused about beauty. Again, beauty is health. This is all just my opinion. You can disagree with anything I'm saying at any point or comment on anything. But I think the foundation of beauty is health, and we as a society are approaching beauty from the wrong angle. We're trying to beautify ourselves from the outside instead of trying to beautify ourselves from the inside. So if beauty is health, well, we're doing things, women and men, we're doing things to make ourselves beautiful that are actually unhealthy. So it's kind of counterintuitive. Like, we're creating these beautiful masks on the outside without actually taking care of the things on the inside that will actually make us the beauty, the certain brand of beauty that we are supposed to be. You know what I mean? So for example, Jesus. I don't know if you guys could hear this, but I guess somebody is shoveling snow. I really apologize about this. I'm in a room where you can hear everything. So I'm really sorry if you can hear this right now, but it's nothing we can do about it. Where was I getting with this? Oh yeah. So using myself as an example, let's say I was to succumb to the business model of trying to sell me beauty, and I wanted to make myself beautiful from the outside in. Well, I would then get breast implants to try to fit in with like the mold that is considered beautiful in society. However, a lot of women, you know, because I've looked into this before, a lot of women are now discovering that their breast implants are actually making them sick. There's actually a whole thing called breast implant sickness or breast implant syndrome or something like that, where women who wanted to get breast implants are now getting their breast implants removed because they're getting all kinds of sicknesses in their body. So it just goes to show, like, what's the point of making yourself like look fertile if you're actually making yourself less fertile by being sick? So I don't know. That's just my opinion on your question. So to kind of sum up my answer, why does society place a high value on beauty when it serves no functional purpose? It does serve a functional purpose. Beauty is meant to point out health, which is meant to point out fertility, which is meant to drive society forward. We fuck it up by actually making ourselves unhealthy in the pursuit of looking healthy. So it's really just all about, it's about money. Society places a high value on like a fake beauty because they want to make money. And yeah, it is what it is. And I'm not shaming people who like get breast implants or who get surgeries and stuff, because remember, beauty is more than just your physical appearance. Beauty is also your soul and your mentality. There is more to beauty than what meets the eye. And, you know, beauty looks different for different people, and health is different for different people. So if you, whatever, I mean, like I have a tattoo. I wasn't born with a tattoo. Like I got that, and it makes me feel beautiful. So, you know, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because I did something to my body that makes me feel more beautiful, even though I wasn't born with a tattoo. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're going to use these aesthetic things to make yourself more beautiful on the outside, make sure you're not doing it at a cost where it actually makes you more unhealthy on the inside. And try to take care of your beauty from the inside out first before you take care of it from the outside in. So take care of your mind, take care of your health, eat well, exercise. There's so many things you can do that will be a beauty routine for you that don't cost. I mean, of course, eating costs money and going to the gym costs money, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to cost you $8,000. It's not going to cost you $8,000 in one pop to eat a healthy meal and exercise. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Yeah, that was a tough question, but I did think about it a lot. Okay. Next question. Okay. So the question is, what is the most important thing a person can do to improve? I'll repeat the question. What is the most important thing a person can do to improve? Okay, I'm really flattered that somebody out there thinks that I can answer this question. I don't have an exact answer to this question, but what I could say is this. What I could say is, I don't think there is one thing that you can do to improve, because I think that humans are made of three things. So I think there are many things you can do to improve, but you're asking me, what do you think is the most important? I get it. So, well, okay, let's get into this. So the three things that make up a human, in my opinion, are mind, body, and soul. I don't think we are just one thing. I think we are mind, we are body, and we are spirit. And so to me, it makes more sense to approach it from, well, what can I do for each one of these categories? Because if I'm this whole system of mind, body, and soul, rather than like thinking like, well, what's the one thing I could do? Like, maybe think about what is something you can do for each avenue. So to kind of answer your question, I'm going to give you one thing per category, maybe two things per category. Mind. I think for the mind, the most important thing, again, like this is just like my opinion, but there isn't really an answer to this. But I would say, in my opinion, the most important thing you could do for your mind is do things to challenge your mind. So for example, a hobby that constantly grows and expands your mind, like piano. Like I play piano, and piano is like a never-ending horizon. Like there's always things you could be doing to get better at the piano, and because of that, my mind is always growing and my mind is always expanding. So I think for your mind, the best thing you can do is to constantly challenge it. For me, that's piano. That's this YouTube channel, podcasting. Sometimes challenging your mind can be as simple as like, taking a different route on the road. Like there's actually simple ways to challenge your mind. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be like, okay, I always take this direction, this route home, and I always use my GPS. What if I turned my GPS off and tried to figure this shit out on my own? That's a way to challenge your mind, because you're basically taking your routine and shaking it up. You're doing something different with your routine. You know, there's so many different ways you can challenge your mind. Learn a new skill, try something different. Try to read a book. You know what I mean? There's so many things you do. So I think when it comes to the mind, it's really just about challenging your mind so that it's constantly growing. So that's for the mind. Body, nutrition, and fitness. I can't say one's better than the other. Man, you got to do nutrition, you got to do fitness. I don't believe that one's better than the other. Like, there's some people out there that'll say like, oh, as long as you work out, you can eat anything you want. I don't believe that. I think that if you're a super fit, gym bro, you got a lot of muscles, but you're eating donuts as your only primary source of nutrition, that's eventually going to catch up with you. You might injure yourself because your muscles may not have the fuel to, may not have the nutritions and the fuel to keep up with all those workouts and stuff like that. So I think that will backfire. And again, it's, even if you're working out and you're constantly lifting weights and stuff like that, nutrition's going to take care of your organs. Like, there's things inside your body that don't have, like, you can't see what that looks like. It's on the inside. And so you got to take care of your nutrition. And then again, you can't just have nutrition and no exercise. Like, we're all aging, we're all dying. Every day that we live, this just thought, okay. So one of my friends was telling me about MS. MS is a immune disorder where, and someone described it to me and they were like, oh, MS is so sad. It's when your muscles and your organs slowly lose function until you die or something like that. I could be fucking it up, but that's what they said. That's basically, in a nutshell, they said like, yeah, you just like lose control of your body until you die. And I'm like, well, obviously what they're saying is like that process will happen faster for those people, a lot faster. But that process is happening to all of us. We are all dying. Like, you know what I mean? I'm dying as we speak. Like I think that's where fitness really plays a big role in improving your body, because it isn't just about aesthetics, Funny enough, I'm not even like, as much as I take care of my health, I'm not even attracted to men that are like fucking ripped. Like, that's not even sexy to me. I find that, like, I mean, unless you're like an Olympic weightlifter and you're doing it for that cause, like that's your passion, that's one thing. But if you're like a dude who's just like constantly in the gym, like trying to show off and like flex at the gym, that's actually a turn off for me. So I'm not saying you have to take it to a level where it's like only for aesthetic purposes. You don't have to look like a bodybuilder just to have like a basic level of fitness. When you're taking care, and again, going back to like the fact that we're all dying, if you take care of your physical well-being, you're gonna hold on to your physical well-being until you die. Like, you're not gonna go as quickly. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of let your body fall apart and have aches and pains and like by the time you're in your 40s. Or you can go strong till you're like 70 or 80. So like, I don't know. It really depends what you want to do with your life and what your life means to you. But personally, I would rather take care of my physical health and prolong my chances at enjoying myself while I'm here on this life, because I'm not going to have this life forever. Anyways, so what do we say? We said mind, we said body, soul. I do think there is one thing that I could say that is the best thing you could do for your soul. And there's many things, but for me, it's pray. I pray almost every single day. Didn't mean to rhyme. That's gay. Not gay in that kind of gay. I'm talking like 1990s gay. We used gay in a different way. Hey, this is becoming really offensive. I'm going to get canceled. Anyways, yeah, so pray. That's like a really weird way to preface what I'm about to say for your spirit. But no, for real though. Praying, to me praying, when you pray, to me it's like the best way to put your ego down. Because like, okay, let's say you get into an argument with somebody. Like in that moment, you're going to be working with your ego. You're going to be like, bitch, I don't like you anyways, you cunt. But when you sit down to pray, like whatever you believe in, I say the word, I'm not religious. Like I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in God. One of my own podcast guests that was like way younger than me actually pointed this out to me. I didn't even know this. I'm considered non-denominational, meaning I always consider myself agnostic, meaning I'm open to the possibility of anything. And I pretty much consider that. But these days I do believe in God, but just not in a religious way. So I just want to kind of like clarify that, because on this channel, I do use the word God, but I guess I use it in an agnostic or non-denominational way, meaning I believe in God, but I don't necessarily know in what context yet I believe it. I'm still trying to discover that. But I do pray to God and I do believe in God. And like I was saying before, like if you get an argument with somebody in person and you're arguing with your ego and you're being nasty or whatever, when you're praying to God, like God you can't lie. Like he or she or it, whatever, they can see everything. They can hear everything. So you have no choice but to tell the truth. So maybe to this person, like in their face, you might be like, fat bitch or cunt or whatever. But then to God, you're going to be like, listen, like I was just really hurt because I really love this person and I wish they cared about me, or like, you know what I mean? Like when you explain your thoughts and feelings to God and you pray to God, you're really exposing your vulnerability and your rawness and your truth. And I think by doing that, it helps you kind of have like a mental clarity of how to then shed your ego in real life. You know what I mean? Because like I said, when you're praying, you can't have ego when you're praying. It just doesn't work. You have to be raw and you have to be vulnerable and you have to tell your thoughts exactly as they are. And you have to ask for forgiveness and you have to say sorry. Like, you know, it's just, and not only that, I don't only like pray in that kind of way, but I also pray for help. Like I pray for help with guidance of what am I supposed to be doing? Like if I'm ever confused and I don't really know what to do about a certain situation, I pray and I find that there is a lot of clarity after praying. So I don't know. I guess in a nutshell, all I'm saying is that praying to me is the single best thing that I could do for my spirit. I notice that when I pray regularly, I feel really in touch with my soul and I feel really in touch with something that's like a greater picture than just me. I still don't know what that thing is. Like I said, I don't even know what God is at this point in my life, but I know it's there. Like I know, is God an entity or is God just human? Sometimes I think that we're God, like not me. I don't mean like I'm a God, but I just mean like, sometimes I feel like, man, I don't know. This is one of those things where I need like another person here to chime in with me, which is why it's so nice to have other guests. So please comment below. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, what is God to you? I would like to know. Like, leave in the comment section below. If you believe in God, do you not believe in God? What is God to you? But to me, God is an entity, but it's also us. I feel like it's all one thing. And I find that that's just like kind of what I believe at this point. But my mind can be swayed, you know, because I'm still kind of discovering what God is. But anyways, let's not get too carried away there. To put it in a nutshell, we had our mind, body, spirit. Mind, challenge your mind. Body, health and nutrition. There is not one, do both. Spirit, pray. I would say those are the four things, I guess, you can do for each category to be a better person. Okay, next. What is on my bucket list this year? So good question. My answer to this question is that I don't believe in bucket list. Sorry if that's offensive for your sweet question. But the reason I don't believe in bucket list is because in my older, I shouldn't say my older, but you know what I mean? Like in the present, like in comparison to everything I was in the past, I'm starting to learn that I become obsessed with everything I do to the point where I don't want to do anything else. So I'm afraid that I don't want a bucket list, because I'm afraid that if I try something new, I will then become obsessed with that thing and I will have to pursue it to the nth degree, because that's just been the way things have been going. Like, to kind of sum up what I was saying before, I'm a late bloomer, didn't really have many hobbies or interests when I was a teenager or a child, or even really in my young 20s. So it's kind of like I was in this time capsule and I'm now discovering life. So life is so fascinating to me now. And it just seems like everything I do, I have to turn it into like a career. Like, I'm just like, I'm going to be a professional comedian, or I'm going to be a Spanish teacher, or a jazz musician, or a classical musician. And it's getting to the point where like, I don't want a bucket list. That's the scariest thing. Like, I have enough to do. And people know this about me too. Like, people that are close with me have pointed this out to me. Okay, like, here's a good example. Water. One of my friends, like, a couple years ago, I went on a kick of like, I'm going to start drinking water and really doing it. And then all of a sudden I was like buying different water bottles and like researching the best kinds of water, and like, and like buying like little scales to like measure the water, like special types of scales, and like doing charts, like water charting, like, so it just like goes to show. And my friend said to me, you're the kind of person who will take water and make water unhealthy. And that is true. So because of that, I don't like bucket lists. Like I'll have some friends that'll be like, oh, it's on my bucket list, to try comedy. Like, that doesn't resonate with me. If I try comedy, I'm going to keep doing it. So I don't really believe in the word bucket list, because, I'm afraid, like, I don't want to learn guitar. I don't want to learn drums, because I'm just afraid that I'll become obsessed with these things, because I just, I have like an addictive, obsessive nature. I just, I'm stressed out even just like talking about it. Like, so, what's on my bucket list this year? Absolutely nothing. I just have goals this year, which I actually have I have a video on my channel called My Goals for 2021. So if you want to know my goals this year, you can look at that. Bucket list. I mean, I guess if I had to put something on my bucket list, I would say travel to Europe. I guess that would be a bucket list thing, I guess. But in general, I don't do bucket list. 4. What were you doing when you felt most passionate and alive? What was I doing when I felt most passionate alive? Again, this is one of those things that I can't really buckle down to just one thing. I would say there's several different things that I do that make me feel passionate and alive. I would say those things, I would say those things are pretty obvious. Like, you guys could probably answer them for me. But I would say the 3 things that make me feel most passionate and alive are 1, music. Obviously. And the funny thing about music is I actually feel the most passionate about music when I'm playing it on my own than I do when I'm playing it for other people. Well, no, that's not true, because I did my senior recital and I did feel very alive doing that. So I guess I can't necessarily say that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, music in general feels really good to me, and I'm just as happy playing it for myself as I am performing it for other people. I would say right now, Bach makes me feel very much alive when I'm playing Bach music. In my video previously, I did, like I said, I made a video saying that I was going to quit classical, but this year I decided I was only going to make room for Bach in my, repertoire. Because there's just something about his music where, I don't even know how to explain it. I do feel very alive listening and playing his music. And I feel like it's not for everybody either. Because I've even had teachers that had their PhD that, like, I would approach them with something I wanted to learn from Bach, and their response would be like, why do you want to learn this? This is just noise. Like, don't you want to learn some Chopin or Schubert or something like that? But I don't know, like, it is a lot of noise. It's like counterpoint, which is like when both hands are playing like different parts at the same times. So it's a lot of like movement and a lot of noise. It's like nonstop chatter. It's like constant chatter. But I really like it. Like, I literally, like when people talk about like tripping on acid, or like, what's that spirit molecule, DMT, when people talk about doing DMT or like acid or something, and they're talking about like they're seeing shapes and they're seeing colors and they're seeing patterns. When I play or listen to Bach, I feel like I'm hearing the patterns, like, or hearing the shapes. Like I feel like it's like a carefully woven like spider web. Like it's like all these parts, you know? So I don't know. Now I'm sounding kind of like a little out there right now, but I guess what I'm trying to say is Bach music makes me feel very alive and very in touch with God, or like something bigger than me. Comedy makes me feel very alive. It's funny, like I've been watching Louis, the TV series created by Louis C.K. I'm a huge Louis C.K. fan, and I've never before saw his TV series. Like I never saw his show. So I've actually been binge watching that during the snowstorm. I watched one this morning. I watched like 10 episodes yesterday. I think there's only like 4 seasons. I'm not sure, but I'm only on season 1 right now. And I've been just like going in it because the reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel like his show is a beautiful, gut-wrenching, really, you know, his show is funny, but it's also really sincere and really emotional. And it's like a very gut-wrenching explanation of what comedy is to some people. The way he goes in and out of it, he's like, they have like scenes where he's doing his comedy and it's really funny and he's making the audience laugh. And then it'll kind of like black out and cut into scenes from his real life. And some of the scenes are hilarious, but some of the scenes are very sad. And I think from what I read, like some of it is based off of his real life, and some isn't. But for the most of it, like for the gist of most of it, it's pretty much like based on his real life, even though some of the things are exaggerated, but mostly based on his real life. And it's just such a beautiful example of what comedy is to some people and what it really means to me. To me, comedy is, and I'm going to quote one of my guests that I had on this podcast. You could check him out, Honest, ONNIST, Honest Music. So one of probably my favorite guests that I've had so far on this channel, such an intelligent, creative person. And what he said to me was, and I'm sure he didn't create this quote, but it was like a quote that he said to me. He said to me that life is either a comedy or a tragedy, all depending on your perspective. I'm going to say that again. Life is either a comedy or a tragedy, all depending on your perspective. And that quote he said stuck with me ever since. And I feel like this Louis C.K. Show really demonstrates exactly what that quote means and exactly what comedy means to me. Comedy is hilarious and it's fun and it feels good, but it comes from a place of pain. A lot of comedians laugh and have the need and the desire to make other people laugh for different reasons, usually rooting in pain. In some cases, it's like, some comedians feel so much shame in their everyday life that they need to kind of make fun of themselves on stage so that they can like kind of take the power back and then have control over their shame as opposed to other people laughing at them. That's like one tactic. In some cases, it's like, like the Joker. If you've ever seen the Joker, he laughs like, the Joker laughs because he can't cry. Like, you know what I mean? So, I wouldn't say all laughter is rooted in pain. I'm sure in some cases it's not, but I'm saying, I would say like 9 out of 10 times stand-up comedy is rooted in pain. So, what I'm getting at with this is like, the reason that I feel so alive doing stand-up is because it is a way for me to take my thoughts that I feel by myself when I'm alone and somehow like turn a positive spin on that. I definitely have like a very dark sense of humor and I'm really into dark comedy. So for me, it's like a way to, I don't know, man, this is getting kind of emotional, but like for me, it's a way to take these thoughts that I have when I'm alone that sometimes make me feel kind of lonely, to be honest, or thoughts that make me feel strange, or thoughts that make me feel weird, or like I'm an outsider, or I don't belong. Like I then take these thoughts and when I'm saying them on stage and I get like a laughter from people, it's kind of like this incredible feeling of like love and acceptance. Like, you're not weird. Like, we all have these thoughts, or we think your thoughts are funny. I don't know. It's like, that's how I feel when I do comedy. So that's why I'm really like big into comedy, because to me it's like an intense emotional release. Like, and that makes me feel really alive. So what do we say? We said comedy, we said music. The last thing that I would say that makes me feel really alive, as corny as this sounds, is to be in the loving arms of somebody that I love, you know. It could be romantic. It could be a child that I love, you know. I have a little brother who's 15 years younger than me, and I was a very big like part in raising him when he was a baby. So just like that feeling of like loving him and taking care of him. If it's like a man I'm in love with and I'm laying in bed with him and holding him, that makes me feel really alive. Or if it's even like a pet, as stupid as it sounds, like I feel really alive and like really emotional and vulnerable when I'm with my pets, like when I'm with my cats, as stupid as it sounds. But I think what I'm getting at is I think love and connection is something that makes me feel very alive. So yeah, to categorize everything we just said, what makes me feel the most passionate alive? I can't dumb it down to one thing, but I could say three things: music, comedy, and love. Those are the things that make me feel the most alive. Okay, and the last question on this list for today, for this podcast, is, I saved this one for last because I think it's the most intense of all. And again, it goes to show like what kind of people I'm attracting on this channel, which I'm very happy about. I'm very happy that I'm attracting people who are also asking important questions and thinking deeply. And some people who are a little dark, I see. Why are so many people lonely? It's like a couple questions all in one question. Why are so many people lonely, and why is it so hard to make connections with people when everybody wants to make a connection? I'm going to repeat this question again. Why are so many people lonely? Why is it so hard to make connections with everyone when everybody wants to make a connection? That is such a good question. And actually, what the fuck? Sorry about that, guys. I just kicked the camera stand. But anyways, getting back into it. That is a really good question. And it's funny, I left this one for last. It kind of describes the sentiment of how I feel this week in general. That's okay. So I'm just trying to figure out like what angle I'm going to attack this question from, because there's like a lot of different angles. So I think the short answer to this question is ego and childhood trauma, which I think are like kind of the same thing. Like I think that childhood trauma is what kind of makes the ego. I think that every single person on this living earth all has childhood trauma. Now again, there's outliers. Like if you're like a sociopath, or like a psychopath, like there's obviously going to be like in the bell curve, there's going to be like outliers, you know, that don't count. But I would say the majority of humans, like the majority of the human population, we're all a lot more alike than we think. There's a reason why things like Greek mythology and the Bible are so big and so important and that are so timeless, because it doesn't really matter like what generation you've lived in. It's crazy how similar the human experience actually is. And like, I don't know, when I was younger and I would like make a close friend or a boyfriend or whatever, like I used to think like, oh my God, like I have a connection with this one person. But the older I get, I realize I have a connection with just about if you look hard enough, you have a connection with anybody you meet. Like it doesn't matter what culture, what language they speak, where they're from. Like if you really dig deep enough, you can find a lot of similarities. Like I can find similarities probably between me and like an 80-year-old man from Nicaragua that is really poor, like something like that. I don't know. Because like I was saying, we all have, the majority of us have this similar experience to be a human. And I think one thing as humans that we all share is that we all have an ego, and probably this ego is built off of childhood trauma. And again, like, you can have a great childhood or you can have a shitty childhood and you'll still have childhood trauma. It's all different and it's all relative. So for example, like, I've had a difficult childhood, and so it's like really obvious why I might have trauma. But you could be somebody with like a seemingly good childhood. Like, you know, let's say, for example, like, you had parents that stayed married and that were loyal to each other, and you know, they went to church and everything seemed happy and everything seemed fine, whatever. But maybe in your case, like, maybe things were so good that your parents were overbearing. Like, you know what I mean? Like in my case, like, I would say I was neglected, but maybe in the case of like a happy family, because nothing's perfect, you know, maybe in those cases your parents were overbearing. Maybe your parents, you know, you got too much attention, or you didn't really have a sense of individuality. So then, like, in that case, that person's childhood trauma would be different than the childhood trauma of someone like me who felt neglected, but they would still be trauma. Like, there would still be, like, as an adult, you know, there's no such thing as a perfect childhood, and there's no such thing as perfect parents, like, which is good to know, because it's given me the ability to have a lot of compassion for my parents as an adult, and like love my parents, because like, I'm not a parent. If I had a kid, I'd fuck them up somehow, not intentionally, but you know, I've got my own issues, and I'm sure I would fuck it up. You know what I mean? So, you know, what I'm getting at here is like, it's just, it's a human experience that we all have childhood trauma, something from our childhood that, as an adult, like, we feel like we have this void. And because of that, we struggle to navigate within our relationships, whether they're friends or family or romantic lovers or whatever. And then, a lot of times in these relationships, we function from we function from the perspective of ego and not the perspective of love. And I kind of almost feel like it's like one of the missions in life is to create self-awareness around your ego and to try to diminish it and try to escape your ego as much as possible. Like, of course, there's going to be a healthy amount of ego. Like, I think my ego, one of the good things about me having an ego is like the fact that it makes me so ambitious and it makes me so hardworking. So I'm not saying like ego is all bad either, but I'm just saying, like, within your personal relationships, I think one of the purposes of life is to try to act out in love and not your ego. And it's incredibly difficult. And so how does this relate to your question though? Like, why are so many people lonely? Why is it so hard to make connections when everybody wants to make a connection? So I think that the reason why people are struggling to make connections these days, and I don't think this is like new. I think we might be struggling more now because of like social media and stuff like that. And the fact that we're not seeing each other in person, that's just obvious. But I think this is an ancient problem. I don't think this is a new problem. I think, we're all like adult babies, like walking around trying to fill in the void of what we were missing from our childhood. And for me, you know, I feel like in this day and age, and I just did like a Donald Trump thing. I don't know why I did that. Like in this, like that was really weird. In this day and age, I feel like I have a pretty good grip on what it is to love and connect with the person, but this wasn't always the case. I had to go through years of therapy, you know, and to be able to figure out what my childhood trauma is and how to learn how to act from a place of love instead of ego when I'm dealing with my interpersonal relationships. And again, like, I feel like a lot of people need therapy, but people view therapy as like a weakness. Like, oh, if you go to therapy, you're crazy. And that's not the case at all. If you go to therapy, you're strong as fuck. Like, you're trying to solve your problems. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually like a position of strength, not a position of weakness. So what I'm getting at with this is it can be discouraging, you know, it can be very discouraging to find yourself in a place where like you're dealing with your childhood trauma and you're in a place where you're ready to love and connect with other people. And you're finding that like other people aren't on the same page, that can be really disheartening and really discouraging. But I think what helps me is having sympathy for people and realizing that I'm not perfect, and I once too like struggled to connect with other people. So it took me years to be able to be vulnerable and open and loving towards a person. Like I said, I feel like right now I'm in a place where I could give a lot of love to a friend, to a romantic lover, to a family member. I feel like I'm in a very loving place in this point in my life, but wasn't always the case at all. Like I used to really struggle a lot. I actually have a quote I want to read to you guys. I feel like I'm secondhand smoking this quote to you, meaning I heard this on the Lex Fridman podcast, which, like, side note, if you don't know the Lex Fridman podcast, you need to get in on that right now. I just saw an episode recently where it was Tim Dillon and Lex Fridman, and just like a little background of who these people are. Lex Fridman is an AI scientist building robots, and Tim Dillon is a fucking genius comedian. He almost reminds me of a young George Carlin. I kind of always thought that. I was like, he reminds, like he's a comedian, but he has another kind of insight that is like genius. You know what I mean? And then it was funny, like on this episode, they actually addressed like that. Lex Fridman told him, like, you remind me of a George Carlin. So I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only person who thinks this. But anyways, this was such a cool podcast episode because it was kind of like the most intelligent two hemispheres like talking. It was like Lex Fridman, the analytical, like the best of the best, and then like the right brain, like emotional Tim Dillon, the best of the best. And like to see them converse with each other was such an amazing thing. But anyways, I'm kind of secondhand smoking this quote to you. It wasn't my idea. It came from the Lex Fridman podcast. But when I heard this quote, it really touched on the sentiment of kind of this question and the advice I'm going to give you and the sentiment of what I'm really feeling this week. So he quoted something by the author, novelist Jack Kerouac. And here's the quote. "The only people for me are the mad ones, the ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time. The ones who never yawn or say commonplace thing, but burn, 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 like fabulous yellow Roman candles, exploding like spiders across the stars." Whoa. When I heard him say that, and I feel like guilty quoting it because it's like, I feel like I'm plagiarizing a little bit, but like I said, like I'm just repeating it because it really touched me, and I had to say it for this question and for this week in general to kind of like sum up the week, because it really touched on us, and the quote can mean different things to different people. But for me, what it meant was it kind of like, to me, gives advice for this question of why are so many people lonely when so many people want to connect. So to me, this quote kind of like gives advice about connection. And again, that's might not be what the quote means for everybody, but that's what it meant to me. To me, this quote is saying, like, I'm going to read the quote again. "The only people for me are the mad ones, the ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time, the ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, burn, burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles, exploding like spiders across the stars." So, how does this relate to what we're talking about? So, like, your question like sparked a lot about why are so many people lonely and why is it so hard to connect. It really sparked a lot of thoughts about how my week went, and going back to what we said before about human childhood trauma and the ego, we're all here on this earth trying to figure our shit out and figure our problems out and like let go of the ego and everything. But don't. So if you're in a place where you want to have this desire to connect with other people, and you might find yourself like trying to make a connection with people who are not ready to connect. It can be easy to be discouraged and to feel like it could be easy to feel like you're fucking crazy for wanting to connect because so many people are struggling to connect and so many people are lonely. When you then have this desire to have a deep connection with other people, it makes you feel like you're the crazy one for wanting that. But when I heard this quote, it really touched me because it was just, to me, this was like an illustration of the strong desire to live, the strong desire to be compassionate, the strong desire to connect with other like-minded people. So the advice I can give for this, about making connections in a world where it's really, really difficult to make connections because everybody's out there trying to figure out their own shit, like, not everybody is in a place to connect. So, my advice, that I get from this quote and that I just get from my own life experience is that don't ever change yourself and don't ever be ashamed of your desire to connect with other people. Rather than trying to tone your passion and your madness down, lean into it more, because that's the only way you're going to find the people in your life. I actually talked about this on my YouTube channel, or my Instagram, a while ago. I made it, so it's kind of interesting how this is all tying together. I made a post saying that the best thing you can do in life, I don't know if I'm saying it exactly the way I said it, but it was something along the lines of the best thing you can do in this life is be yourself, because don't try to change your personality or change who you are, or shy away from your weirdness or your passion or your excitement just to fit in a mold of being relatable to other people. You know what I mean? It makes more sense to just be yourself. And if you are this mad, crazy, desirous, passionate person, that I'm getting of Jack Kerouac, and the chances are you're going to repel the next 10 people you meet. But by repelling the people that are not meant to be in your life, you are then opening up space for the people who should be in your life. I guess what I'm saying here is to sum up this question, I'm just going to sum up the question. Ego and trauma are the things that make it difficult to connect. It makes it the reason why I have difficult connecting, or you have difficulty connecting. But we are all on a journey to let go of the ego and to learn to navigate, through that pain and suffering of the childhood trauma and the ego. So if you find yourself in a place where you are now ready to make a true, authentic, loving connection with a romantic partner, with a friend, with a family member, and they're not on the same page as you, do not change your personality or change anything about yourself to then try to force a connection with them. Just let them go and continue to be mad and crazy and open and loving and passionate. And by doing that, you will repel the people that are not meant to be your life, and you will open up the flow and the energy of people that you should be attracting in your life. So I guess that's how I could sum up the answer. I know I got a little carried away with it, but it was just kind of, I thought about this stuff before I said it, but I didn't say it out loud. I just kind of thought in my head. So I'm just trying to articulate it. But anyways, that's actually all the questions for today. Doing this solo podcast in the question answer type of form, I found was very helpful because it kind of gave me some direction of what to talk about. And I was very flattered to hear all these interesting questions, from you guys. So I really appreciate that. So we are now closing now. Cheers, everybody who is also stuck in the snowstorm and doesn't have anything to drink except for sobering things. I wish everybody good luck and a good week, and happy and productive and successful week. And again, if you're new on this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment on anything you heard today if you disagreed or agreed with anything I said. And if you're into this and you want to come back next week I'm going to have a jazz music video out. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a guest here, and we are going to have guests on this podcast coming up. And it's going to be really exciting. So I hope you guys had a good time. And that's it today for the Pranzata Podcast. Take care, guys.